When I was young, I was a very curious guy. I fancied myself as a detective and would always behave like one. One day, I was playing in the ground near our home, searching for some kind of clues and digging small holes in the ground. I had made plenty of them. While making holes, I found something in the ground. I dug in and found something wrapped in that red, muddy cloth. I was excited that I finally found something. Excitedly, I removed the cloth, revealing a strange, creepy doll. It was a small stuffed toy doll with a very creepy face. The strange thing was that there were needles inside it. As dusk settled, I grabbed the doll and hurried home, knowing Mom would be upset if I returned late. Entering the house, I glanced around. Mom was engrossed in the TV. I tried to slip by unnoticed, but she caught me, firing off the typical questions. Where had I been? Why was I so dirty? Go clean up and change. I went straight to my room and hid that doll under my bed. Later, I had almost forgotten about the doll and got busy with other stuff. That night, something very horrible happened. I was sleeping when I woke up to a strange whisper. It was something that I couldn't understand. That sound like some sort of spell, and the voice sent chills down my spine. The sound seemed to be coming from underneath the bed. I was scared and pulled the blanket over my head. I didn't have the courage to see what was beneath as the voice was so horrifying. The whispering continued, and then suddenly, my bed started moving as if someone was hitting it. I started to scream, but I felt a great dark force paralyzing and choking me as if hands were covering my face. Everything stopped when my mom opened the door. I blacked out after that. The last thing I remember is my mom coming to me, asking what was wrong, and a blurred picture of a dark shadow of a lady standing behind my mother. I recall being in a fever for days, having terrible dreams where someone was inserting needles into my body and I could feel the pain for real. My body grew weaker and weaker. It wasn't just me experiencing all this. My mom witnessed it too. She saw a lady in the house, a figure with dirty curly hair, wrinkled dark skin, and jet black eyes. She said she saw her many times when she would peek into my room, standing next to me, and disappear as soon as she came in. Doors and windows slammed on their own, plates fell and broke, and she could also hear those whispers, that particular spell. She was also scared and worried about my worsening health condition. No medicine seemed to work. In the end, she contacted a priest. He came to our home and gave me a blessing, instructing me never to remove it, and the same for my mom. He explained that he couldn't do much more as he knew nothing about the entity and its intentions. According to him, in order to get rid of it, we first need to find out why it suddenly appeared and what is the medium through which it manifests. Until then, to keep everything in check, he gave my mom holy water to sprinkle in every corner of the house every week. Things were getting better with all the precautions, but it didn't end there. If my mom ever forgot to perform the rituals, the same occurrences would start happening again. I could sometimes see her lurking in the dark corners. I remember being scared of the dark after that and never slept with the lights off. Then, one day while cleaning, my mom found the doll that I had hidden under my bed. She asked me about it, and I told her how I discovered it. She took it to a mystical store nearby to ask about it. They immediately warned my mother that it was very dangerous and asked how she found it. They explained that it was a kind of strong witchcraft, often used to kill someone, and I was not supposed to touch it. They came to our home and performed a strange ritual. They sat in a circle, placed candles at certain places, and recited some verses. After that, they slowly, one by one, removed the needles. When they did that, I felt a pain as if something was being taken out from my body as well. Their ritual went on for hours, and finally, it was over. They assured us that nothing would disturb us again. I don't know what they said to my mother inside, but she never threw away that doll and still keeps it in her locker. The good thing is that we never saw that entity again. It all began on that evening when our son David returned from a week-long school hiking trip. He seemed excited and happy. After dinner, when he took out all the stuff he brought with him, there was this very antique mirror with a brown frame. I asked David where he found it. He said he discovered it buried in the ground during the hike. I wanted to have a closer look at the mirror, but David suddenly became really protective of it and wouldn't let me or Sarah touch it. We didn't think much of it at the time because, well, it was just a mirror after all, and kids can be possessive about their stuff sometimes. As the days passed, strange occurrences began to happen. My wife and I noticed a sudden change in David's behavior. He started acting strangely. We often found him talking to himself as if someone was there with him, but there was no one else around. At first, we thought it was just his imagination or a way of coping with loneliness. But soon, things got only worse when we began to sense a strange presence in the house, followed by hearing whispers and faint footsteps sometimes. It felt like there was someone else living with us. One morning, David had breakfast with us, and then he went outside to play. But just a few minutes later, he came back down the stairs as if he had just woken up from a nap. Sarah even went outside to check, but there was no one on the lawn. It was so puzzling and kinda creepy, too. How could he have been in two places at once? A few days later, it was just me and David at home as Sarah was out of town. I wanted to check on him before going to bed, so I went to his room. When I entered, David was lying on the bed with his back facing me. I gently covered him with the blanket and turned off the side lamp. But then, something really spooky happened. I was about to leave the room when I heard his creepy laughter. I turned around to see him sitting on the bed, facing me and still laughing maniacally. I asked him if he was okay, but he didn't reply and just kept laughing. Then, he slowly pointed his finger downward, like showing me something under the bed. I couldn't understand, but I felt like I had to see what was there, so I bent down to look. And to my horror, I saw David hiding under the bed, with big, teary eyes filled with horror. He looked straight into my eyes and said, "Dad, there's someone on my bed," with a trembling voice. I got scared and quickly looked over the bed, but there was nothing there except for that creepy mirror from his school trip. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I just hugged David tightly and tried to comfort him. But deep down, I knew something really strange and frightening was happening, and it had something to do with that mysterious mirror. I decided to have him sleep with me. But during the night, I woke up and realized he wasn't beside me anymore. I began searching for him all over the place when I heard the sound of faint whispers echoing through the house. I followed the voices to David's room. When I opened the door, David standing in the dark corner of his room, holding the mirror in his hand. He was whispering some strange words while staring intensely into it. I called out his name over and over, but he didn't even blink or respond. It seemed as if he got paralyzed, and it scared me to see him like that. I reached out to grab David, hoping to bring him back to reality. Suddenly, David's behavior seemed more natural. I tried to ask him about the mirror to understand what was happening, but tears welled up in his eyes, and he couldn't find the words to explain his fear. Worried for my son, I reached out for help and called my friend who worked with paranormal experts. He advised me to take the cursed mirror back to the forest where David had found it. He explained that the mirror was no ordinary object, but an ancient cursed entity that needed to be returned to its origin to break its malevolent hold. I took him in the car and headed to the hiking spot where he had discovered the mirror. As we drove towards the forest, something felt off. All of a sudden, we encountered a strange roadblock caused by fallen trees, and we had to take a different route, which added 2 extra hours to our journey. The closer we got to the forest, the creepier the surroundings became. We even spotted some dead animals along the way, which was out of the ordinary. It seemed like the mirror didn't want to be taken back to its original place, and it was doing everything it could to deter us from returning it. Finally, we reached the forest. The sun was about to set. Taking a deep breath, I placed the cursed mirror back to the very spot it had been unearthed. With a sigh of relief, we quickly made our way back to the car. On the way home, David slept through the whole ride, and when he woke up, I could tell it was all over. The expression on his face was back to his usual one, and we didn't go through any strange events again.
Subscribe to the channel to hear the strangest stories of encounters with the unknown. I'll tell you the best tales of horror, mystery, and suspense. When whispers and shadows lurk in the darkness, the time for nightmares has come.
Unknowingly, I did something very wrong that I want to confess today. I'm Julie, and this happened to me 2 years ago, but I still carry the weight of my mistakes. I was in college at that time. My friend circle at college made a plan to go camping in the woods. It was about an hour's distance from our town. On Saturday, we went there. We were a group of 4, Chris, Ben, Tina, and me. We arrived before sunset and found a camping spot. While my friends were busy setting up the tent, I was given the task of collecting small woods nearby for the fire. As I was wandering here and there, I tripped over a branch and fell to the ground. I was on my knees when I noticed something shiny in the mud. Curiosity got the best of me, and I dug in to see what it was. When I slid the clay aside, I found a very beautiful necklace. It had a beautiful gold chain that was real, I guess, and a very unique and precious-looking pearl in it. I fell in love with it at first sight. I cleaned it, and without having another thought, wore it. It was an unexpected find, and I was loving it. In all that process, I didn't realize that I took too long, and my friends were looking for me. They were calling me, so I ran back to the camping area. They were furious. The tent was all set, and all they were waiting for was me and the woods. I made a sheepish apology face, and they silently accepted it. We lit the woods, and were all ready for a memorable night together. Tina even noticed that necklace, and complimented me, saying it looked good. I thanked her. Soon, it was all dark. We were having dinner when Ben and Chris were talking while eating. I pointed out that it could be dangerous for us to talk while eating. They made fun of me, and continued laughing. Suddenly, Chris started coughing. He had choked on something in his throat. After a while of coughing and having water, he got better. It was just a coincidence. At least, that was what we thought. We had made a plan of playing games. At first, we played truth or dare. Everything was normal until it was my turn. I chose truth. Tina asked me what my biggest wish was. I said I wanted my crush to notice me and only me. They tried to inquire who my crush is, but I kept quiet because it was Ben, and Ben was Tina's boyfriend. I had a crush on him since the first time I saw him, but he never noticed me, and eventually ended up liking Tina, as she was more beautiful. The strange thing for me was that all of a sudden, he started to talk to me more. He was staring at me, seemed more involved with me, and was listening and noticing everything. Tina clearly didn't like that. I realized it, but there wasn't much that I could do about it. To be honest, I was happy. I didn't know how this miracle worked, but I was enjoying it. My biggest wish had come true. After that, whatever I wished for somehow happened in reality. Like in my heart, I wished for Ben to kiss me, and the next moment, Chris gave Ben the dare to do that. Soon, I realized that this was not merely a coincidence. It all started after I found that necklace. I was happy at that time and was taking full advantage of it. But they say everything comes with a price. And that is indeed true. But I didn't realize that. I was being so selfish. I had almost forgotten about Tina's feelings and how she would feel. Out of jealousy, Tina started being rude, and soon it turned into an argument. We both started yelling, and in the end, out of anger, I said, "I wish you were dead," and left the bonfire. As I turned around, I heard that blood-curdling scream that still pierces my ears. It was Tina. Her long skirt had caught fire. She was screaming. Ben and Chris tried to free her from the fire. They threw water from a water bottle. The fire slowed down, and finally, they were able to save her. Fortunately, he had only minor burns on his leg. At that moment, watching Tina suffering and screaming in pain, I realized what I had done. I was slapped back to reality, and I was paralyzed. Everyone thought it was an accident, but I knew it was not. It was because of that necklace. It was because of me. I threw that necklace back into the woods, hoping that no one would ever find it again, because I didn't want anyone else to suffer the same pain. I didn't tell anyone about it. Later, Tina asked me about that necklace, and I simply told her it must have fallen off without noticing. Even today, I still wonder if it might have been some kind of magical or cursed object, and I hope no one has found it. Perhaps I should have hidden it better.